Feels like church.
Kevin, you look like
Oh, I just want to be out of the way, sorry.
oh, okay. You look like a game show host back there. Really good.
Mr. Mayor, go ahead.
All right. Welcome to the Blairstown Township Committee meeting for Wednesday, May 24th, 2023. Can you have an opening roll call, please, Kristen?
Mrs. Lance. Here.
Mr. McIntyre.
Here.
Mr. Orcutt.
Here.
Mrs. Waldron. Here. Mayor Moorhead.
Here, please rise to salute the flag. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mayor, could you guys indulge me, please, and all remain standing? Join me in a moment of silence, honoring those who died in military service of this great country. With Memorial Day coming up this weekend, it's only fitting that we keep our fallen warriors and their families in your thoughts and prayers. Thank you.
Adequate notice of this meeting has been provided in accordance with the Open Public Meeting Act, PL 1975, Chapter 231, setting forth the time, date, place, and purpose of this public meeting through a legal notice published in the New Jersey Herald and or the Star Ledger following the Township's annual reorganization meeting at which the 2023 meeting schedule was adopted. I apologize in advance for the quality of my voice tonight, but if I can't finish, I'll just turn it over to our deputy mayor, and the meeting will run on for an extra hour. We'll start off with a presentation tonight from Beth Styler-Barry from the Nature Conservancy. She has an update on the Paulina Dam removal, something we've been following closely for, we're going into a couple of years now on this process. Beth, I'll give it to you.
Okay, can everyone hear me if I speak at this level? If not, just, just give me a shout and I'll raise my voice. So I'm here tonight with an update. I've been updating the township, well, as needed, but usually not more than 3 months or so go by. And so tonight I have an update because we're closing in on a timeline for activities for the dam removal. This is actually an American shad, which is one of the target fishes, one of the reasons that we're interested in removing the dam. And this was actually texted to me this weekend. This was caught on the Paulin Skill, a little bit below Paulina, but this is a fish that migrates in from the Atlantic Ocean. And for the 110 years that the Columbia Dam was in place, these fish were not capable of coming into this river. They would just be blocked off right at the mouth of the Delaware. And about 17 days after the Columbia Dam came out, American shad were found right at the foot of the Paulina Dam. And they continue to be there. One of the people from the state was out sampling yesterday and today. And he sent me an email to say the river is just full of shad. So super exciting. It also is an indicator of the river being in really good condition, right? These are kind of picky fish. They're not going to come up if the water isn't clean and cold. And I'll just say, and you guys can elaborate if you want to, but the Nature Conservancy is involved in this removal because of the ecological uplift, right, and how it fits into the plan of the 3 removals that are taking place on the Paulin Skill. Your township is interested in the removal of the dam because it is a financial hardship for the town. So they were more than happy, I think, to join forces and get the dam out. It's also public safety liability. There are drownings on dams all the time. I think Pennsylvania has had 15 dam-related drownings already this year. So this is the timeline. I apologize, it might be a little bit small, but I'll just kind of walk you through it. These first items, 1 through 4, is a lot of engineering work that needed to be done. There was a previous engineer, there were some gaps to be filled in their work, and this was all done on time by May 15th, so all that engineering work. And then the next thing is to get all of that information to the New Jersey Department of Environmental Protection. they're the ones who issue the permits. They're the regulators on this kind of a project. So that goes to them by the end of June, and our hope is to do what we call a notching, and I'll explain it a little bit more. Some of the bigger dams are taken down kind of in stages. You could imagine if you have a dam in place, that dam is about 204 feet long and about 13 feet high, right? You can't just pop something like that out. You see those like videos, like people are exploding dams. So number one, that's never gonna happen in New Jersey. That's like a Wild West kind of thing, but it's just not good for the environment upstream or downstream, so we do tend to step through these. So I'll talk about the notch in a minute, but then the main removal of the dam is very likely to actually happen next year, next summer, and with a full project wrapped up by the end of 2025. So what's going to happen first, what the notching is going to look like, I put this little person here. So this is what the dam would look like to you if you were standing with your back to the water company. Is everybody familiar with that brick building down by the river, right? So if you were standing at the river with your back to that building, you'd be looking at the dam out in front of you like this. So the way that this dam removal will begin, and this is likely to be August to September-ish, right? It all depends on how the regulators move, and, a little bit of weather thrown in there. This part of the dam, maybe 30 or so feet, will be taken down by 5 feet. So I'll show you like a front-facing view and explain it again. But what will happen is it'll come down 5 feet over the course of maybe a week or so, and that'll be 30 feet wide, that first cut. And what that allows for is a gradual dewatering of that big pool that you see upstream, right? You don't want to pull the plug and then every creature that lives up there is all of a sudden stranded, right? And also if you do it too fast, that sediment will move downstream and that smothers the downstream habitat. So it's like to protect both up and downstream. That's why we do it this slowly and carefully. So here is the front view, okay? This is, if you're standing on the bridge on Crispin Avenue and looking at the dam that way, and it's all out in front of you. It's this section right here, that's where the notch will be. But in order to make that notch, you might be thinking like, how did they get that big machine? Is it gonna reach all the way over? Well, it's not gonna reach all the way over. They're gonna make a little bit of a road almost out of rock right in front of the dam, right in this part of the dam. They're going to make a rock road almost. And then they're going to build it up to about, we said it's going to come down 5 feet. They're going to build that rock ramp up to that notch. And that, it allows them to bring the machines out there, but it also is a little bit of extra fortification because now we've weakened the dam, right? We've cut the top of it down, so this is a very old structure. Can't be 100% sure. We know that it's filled with rocks and made in, in a wood crib was the first thing. It's now covered in concrete. But we have to, be thoughtful when they take that top concrete off. We want to make sure the whole thing doesn't collapse, right? So that rock, both road and stabilization pad, will go right up in front of the dam. And again, that'll happen maybe August, maybe September of this year, and then it will actually dewater for an entire year, and this thing will stay here for a whole year. And again, it's so that all of that sediment that's in behind the dam, there's approximately 70,000 cubic yards of sediment, has a chance to dewater, and it doesn't make a big slug of sediment downstream, right? So we're going to let that happen for about a year. Okay, that's just me trying to show you whereabouts that rock ramp is going to be in front there. And so you're probably wondering, like, what is this going to look like in the end? So I wanted to kind of give you an idea in this aerial view of what this is going to look like. So the dam is here. This is what people call Paulina Lake. It's the impounded water behind the dam. So if you're familiar with this, if you've ever walked the trail that goes along the river, if you haven't, you really should, because it's a great view, and it'll also, when you ask yourself that question, what the heck is this gonna look like when they're done? The answer is just upstream, right? The answer is in the unaffected part. So we're down here at the dam, approximately 3/4 of a mile or so, you will start to see, you'll hear it before you see it. If you're gonna walk up here, cross on that old rail bridge, and as you're walking along here, you'll start to hear moving water over those, it's a bedrock feature, right? Looks like almost like little waterfalls there. That is the unaffected part of the river. That's what the river would look like if we hadn't put that 13-foot high dam there, right? So if you're curious what it's gonna look like, you just need to walk upstream. Again, that's about 3/4 of a mile upstream. So, people ask what's going to change, what's not gonna change. This width here, below the dam, is gonna remain roughly the same. So the dam is, much wider. So at the dam, that's gonna come in. But once you get 40 or 50 feet downstream or so of the dam, that width is gonna stay pretty much the same. Now, if the year after this comes out is dry, everybody's gonna say, oh, you said it's gonna be the same, and, it's low. Well, that's because of the weather, right? And if the next year it's really high, you're gonna say, hey, she said it's gonna be the same. It's not us, it's Mother Nature, right? So you always have to take that into consideration, right? I've done a dam removal which had like the drought of record the summer after, and everybody said, you took the water away, but it's not us, right? So this is gonna stay about the same, and here where you see the red arrows, that's a place where the river is unnaturally wide, where it's gonna come in, right? It's gonna become more narrow, it's gonna shrink back to its natural width. And when that happens here, when this comes in closer to that kind of width, you're gonna have exposed banks here. All of that sediment is gonna be like a mud bank. And that's another reason why we de-water the impoundment first, right? So that has a chance to settle, and we can take a look at it and see, is it steep? In which case we have to grade it back. In all cases, it will wind up being vegetated. It will probably sprout seeds within 2 weeks of the water being lowered. There's all seeds in there. There's 150 years worth of seed in there. The last dam removal that I did, we actually had money in the budget for hydroseeding. And by the time we could reach the hydroseeder and ask them to come out with the truck, the entire thing was covered in vegetation. It just happens like that, because it's great soil, right? It's really good soil back there. So again, up here, once we get up to there, no change in width, because that is the natural width. Okay, so one other thing that I wanted to point out is there will be some big rocks stored right here. So, if you're coming off Route 94, you're coming to the site here, you're going over the road at Chrisman. We were out there the other day making a plan for where we can store some of this rock. It will be stored there, I would say, roughly from this July to next July. We did some careful kind of calculations. We don't want to take up all the spots. If you are familiar with this parking lot, it is incredibly bumpy, and I drive a VW Bug. It's like this, rip the bottom of my car out. So we're going to take the worst part of the parking lot. We'll store rock there, and also a little bit of the field back here. And this is the area. Remember I said that the machine will come in, make a little road, and then cut that notch. This is the area where they'll clear, looks like maybe a half a dozen trees, none of the really big trees, but we'll have to clear an area in there, and then that will be replanted at the end of the project. It will just be wide enough to allow equipment to go down there. We have no desire to make it any wider than it needs to be. And this is what that looks like, right? So if you were standing on the road here, here's the dam. You can see it through this bit of trees, and the reason you can see it is because there's not a lot of big trees there, right? So you can see through that easily, and you can see that helps us to make the choice of where we want to bring those equipment in. we're not gonna, you know, take this big cluster of mature trees when we can just go right here. Okay, so what is not going to change, the area that is the beach, right, that people call the beach, I'm going to address that in just a minute. This is a little further up, so if the beach is behind you and you're walking towards the dam, this is between, the beach is back here behind these trees, and the dam here is in front of you. So this will remain pretty much untouched. Let's see if we can get this. Not exactly sure. This was kind of to give you the 180 view of exactly what's there. Let's see if we can move it along. Anyway, so this area and then turning around back up and facing the dam will not be changed, right? We don't really need to go in here again. You know, can I tell you that this tree is not going to fall? There's another tree that's going to not lay up here. You know, that kind of thing. It happens. One year it's, you know, wooded, one year it's not wooded. If this video would play, we'd be able to see there's in fact like a big tree that fell down. Another tree's leaning on another tree that's leaning way over. So that tree might, you know, take itself out. Nope, not happening. Let's see. Let me try once more here. All right, sorry about that, folks. Okay. So again, you can see coming around here, this, you know, this will have, you know, we will walk a piece of equipment off there, but as you come around, and then we're working kind of very hard to figure out what to do with this right here. So the dam itself will be gone. We're going to try very hard to see if we can make that like a little bit of a lookout or a fishing access or something like that. You know, the regulators have the final say here. We can say to the DEP we want to do that, and they could say, no, you're not. So we have some cool ideas, but we'll see what happens. This is the width that I showed you on the aerial, which will remain largely unchanged. This is like, this is actually created by someone down there. That's not a natural feature. But this width across here will remain about the same. So when you look out after this is done, you'll see like that same rocky kind of place as a place, you know, I mean, that's like a kid's paradise right there, right? And that will remain pretty much unchanged. Again, in the early part of the project, yes, some of that sediment is going to come down, and you're going to see it passing through. So not too much we can do about that. We might dredge some. It depends on exactly when they go in and make a decision whether or not we need to dredge. Okay, I think this is it. This is just another picture of what it looks like a little bit further upstream. Okay, you lose that lake-like top, you lose the mucky bottom, you're back to a nice rocky bottom with clear water, and that's what the pond school should look like. And that's it for me. But I'm happy to take questions.
I have a question. Last year, we voted to start the demolition of the dam, and the DEP came in and made us do an evaluation of the dam again. Are they going to make us do that this year also?
I really hope not. They are holding the permit right now. So we are waiting. We got them, like I said, the last of what they say that they need, they should have in their hands. So, you know.
They're going to be poking holes in the dam.
Right, hopefully when
August
they,
and September.
so they notch it, they're not going to be asking us for an inspection report. And it's a good dam, except it's got a notch in it. Hopefully that was the last of the
And no
inspection.
repairs in the meantime until you take this down, correct?
Right. Once we start the removal process,
That's it.
that's it.
Thanks.
Any other questions? Yes.
Yeah, we had spoken before, and basically I was just hoping I can get in touch with the engineer involved in the project. I'm on the river, my property's on the river. Just want to figure out where my landline's going to be at that point. And I guess for the town, is there any type of permitting involved if I would choose, once the project's completely done, if it is able to, like, you know, build a dock out to the water again? Because like I said, I'm on the borderline here, you can easily fish right from my spot. I'm gonna lose that access now. So is there any way to compensate that for anybody who's on the river, if they choose to do that to their structure? And
I think that's likely a question for the Department of Community Affairs, who would do building permits and things like that. I think the encroachment on the river is difficult.
Yeah.
It's hard to get permission for something like that on a flowing, on a lake maybe, but not on a flowing body of water. Do you know any more about that now?
So, you know, depending on exactly where you are in here, what's gonna happen is wherever you meet the river now, you're gonna have to walk 20 more feet and you will be at the river, right? Instead of it being a mucky, you know, if you fish, you will have more fish and more diverse fish, right? You'll have both a greater variety.
not to be able to get to the fish, that's.
Well, it's walking 20 feet more out.
That is the responsibility when you touch on wetlands like that, water. I mean, it's not a township permit. Basically, it's really like a DEP, correct?
Yes. For us, the wetlands aspect of this is a big, huge part of the permitting, so the surveys, and then the regulations that come under the Clean Water Act, we need to meet all of those, so that
If the stream is going to look like, and you've seen the stream upstream.
Okay.
I mean, if it's going to look something like that, I mean, a dock obviously is very loop. You're not going to have a dock in a stream that's the same size as the dock. And you'd be
Yeah, I
blocking
mean,
the stream. That's
you're also gonna lose the dock in a big storm.
Sure. Understand. Even if it's just marshy, wetland going out there, is there any accessible way to go out?
Yeah, I mean, it should be a rocky bottom, like you see further upstream. This is all rock. I mean, it might be a little hard for you to see. This is all rock that you can see right through the water.
I think Beth, what he's asking is, will there be that the silt and everything that once you said it de-waters, will it be hard enough to walk from his house down to the, or will it be mushy and marshy?
So in the beginning, like the first year, you'll see that sediment on top of rocks, but it will move through over time. I can tell you the rough estimate is the 50% of the sediment will be gone in the first 2 years, right? So remember, a lot of it is going to make those banks of the sediment that is going to move through, which is a fraction of the total amount. In a couple of years, 50% will be gone, and the rest will move through with storm events. That's what we see. So I mean, the best example I can give you is down in Columbia. If you go down there and you walk in, you are walking on a rocky bottom where you would have been up to your chest in sediment prior to the dam removal. It's now a rock bottom. I just put this up to say that, like, right now the sediment is up to about, if you look behind the dam, you're just looking into muck. So eventually that'll come out and we'll go back to, again, the normal bottom and the normal depths that should be there.
I've seen people walking behind the dam. That's how much sediment is behind there. They're standing behind it.
Definitely really dangerous thing
Yeah.
to do. So they may be walking on, this dam has a kind of a funny shape. Let's see if we can get back there. This dam, because of the way it was built in a couple of series, right? So you see what's about a 2-foot ledge, and then that little lip they built to give like an extra bit of oomph at one point. So people might walk here, but if you can get trapped in that sediment and drown because you can't get out of it, right? Think of quicksand. That's kind of what that's like back there. It's dangerous.
great presentation, Beth. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, thank you all. All right, and anybody who has a question afterward, you can, reach out to the town. I mean, if you just Google my name, you're going to come up with my email somewhere. But you can reach out to the town and they'll point you in my direction. I am happy to answer any question that anybody has at any time, literally, right? I never get tired of answering questions.
Thank you very much, Beth.
You guys, one more question. Is there any type of tax relief then if we're not paying for the dam anymore? Upkeep of it or anything like that? Is there something that's going to be settled?
No, we don't, we haven't really, there's not much upkeep of that dam. That's really the reason why we opted for this route, because it was going to, the cost of repairing the dam to bring it back to what the specs that it should be in were somewhere in the range of $400,000. Removal of it is, what is it, up to 6.5 million, somewhere around there?
About $5 million.
Yeah, $5
At this
million.
point, you know, when the regulators take a crack at the
Yeah.
design,
And that's coming from the state, right? That's-
Right.
Right.
DEP kicked in quite a bit from that, and the Nature
So
Conservancy.
is there anything in the budget then to reinforce that road, Christmas Road there, that if you could widen it out or just modernize that road before now that the dam would be removed?
As far as the bridge, so the bridge is county property, so we can't touch that part. They're the ones repairing that right now. But yeah, we don't, the only thing that we've spent money on with the dam in the past few years is inspections. We're required to inspect it every year. It's about $2,500, something in that range. But the dam hasn't cost us much, other than the shad not being able to get upstream. It's not bad.
But as far as improving that, East Crispin Road from 94 in, it's pretty tough to do anything there. And if we could, the mayor would have had it done already since he lives on East Crispin. That's a travel and everything.
I go over that bridge every day. Thank you, Beth.
okay, all right, thank you all, and don't forget, reach out if
Thank you
you
very
have
much,
questions.
Beth.
Up next, we've got John Hawk from the Blairstown Rotary, 4th of July fireworks celebration. Are you with us, John? He didn't show up. Everybody's here except for John. Okay. Yes, the fireworks are
On
on.
the 3rd, so
He was just going to ask if they do
Take care.
the annual donation. We approve it, the annual donation that the township gives, that's why he was coming.
Okay.
Which we did budget for.
Yes.
Want to make a motion to approve that donation? Then? Do we know what the donation
It's
is?
3,000 last year.
I'll
Up
make-
to 3,000, they do try to do some fundraising to outfit some of the costs.
I'll make the motion.
Second. Second. All right. We have a motion and a second to make a $3,000 donation to the Blairstown Rotary for the 4th of July fireworks happening on the 3rd of July. We have a roll call, please, Kristen.
Mrs. Lance?
Yes.
Mr. McAtora?
Yes.
Mr. Orcott?
Yes.
Mrs. Waldron?
Yes.
Mayor Moorhead?
Yes. Moving on to our public comment section of the meeting. Trying to keep what voice I got left. Do we have any public, we have a lot of public here. Are you all waiting for something, or would anyone like to make a comment? Are you just here for the good-looking folks sitting up here? All right, there's a spokesperson.
I guess so. Not sure if this is the right section to do it at, but I'm here anyway. Is this the part where we talk about 19-203, or do we do that before we talk about 19-203?
It's on the agenda, so
It is.
we can talk about it.
Perfect. So, I am David Schupper, I live at 141 Hope Road. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen.
Good evening.
I would just like to find out, I have two questions. I tried to email those in advance so we could talk about it a little bit. My biggest question is the committee willing to accept a minor change to the 19-203, particularly to the exclusion? So when it talks about animal facilities shall be defined as any of the following, and specifically excluding household animals, maintained for personal enjoyment or breeding, training, or sales, as may normally occur over the course of personal ownership. Could there be an addition, as well as those housed on qualified farms that play a reasonable role on the farm? The thought behind that is that I would suggest that this addition would protect farms and farmers from undue strain and confusion in the new ordinance. Like, to put an example, you have a sheep farm. Right? Sheep farmers may like to breed and train and utilize their own shepherding dogs to guard and control their sheep herd. Since this is could be seen by some people as a commercial use of that facility or that property, I would think it would be prudent for the township to devote devoted to maintaining its rural character, to take added step of putting that into the definition section.
We're not doing any of these ordinances tonight or in the foreseeable future.
Ah.
So what I was going to suggest is, and the reason we're not doing that, these are proposed ordinances from our land use board. But procedurally, because these would affect basically the whole township, they need to pursue a master plan re-exam. So which they're aware of. So they got on the agenda, but that's really premature, so we're not going to be doing anything with them now. But when they have their master plan update, those will all be public meetings.
Okay.
And that would be a great place to bring those up. So this is all just very preliminary.
Can I just ask a question? I do apologize. We do have on there, on our agenda for 2310 for definitions of 19203. Is that what you're referring to?
Yeah.
Because we also have another matter regarding animals.
Right.
So I'm confused on which one he's talking about. Are you talking about definitions?
Yeah, I was under the understanding that we were having a second reading of 19203.
That is incorrect. We're only having the introduction.
Okay, well, I mean,
There's
it
no
also requires.
adoption or public hearing for that as of yet.
Okay.
But those definitions, don't they kind of relate to the other one? then?
And unfortunately, this is what land use gave me.
I would
Yeah.
say we table both of
Yeah.
those.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, so we're tabling that discussion.
Yeah.
The ordinance that we had first reading on, we're not doing second reading on that. That's just kind of died its own death.
Okay.
That's another master plan issue.
Right.
Yeah, with the
Okay.
kennels and
So-
stuff,
Right.
all that stuff has to go through a master plan amendment process.
Okay.
So those would be great points to bring up at our land use board. Eventually they
I
will.
was at the land use board and they
said it was being
they sent to the
adopted.
township.
Yeah, they're
So-
not going to be that. They're not moving forward tonight, they can't.
Okay.
Okay, procedurally they
I
can't.
guess I got confused on here. But,
You might have got bad information, but.
well, I was at
No,
the land
they're
use
on,
board
they're on the
meeting.
agenda.
Okay.
Yeah, it's on the
They're on
agenda,
the
so.
agenda.
Gotcha.
Okay.
I was told to put them on. the
However,
agenda.
based on your comments,
Yes.
we'll go back to the land use board and consider those comments. You'll be back at the next land use board meeting.
Probably, yeah.
But we'll take those comments into consideration at the land use board also,
Okay.
before anything gets enacted there.
Yeah.
You didn't waste your time.
Well, I appreciate that, I really do. So, I did have, well, I guess I can wait for it now. 'Cause I was wondering about interpretation, but I think it can wait for right now to go through.
So,
the-
let me ask you, are you expecting that the property at 121 is going to become a qualified farm?
Yeah, it is.
It is a qualified farm now.
Yes, we do. And so, yes, 141 Hope Road is a qualified farm, it's farm preserved, and it's utilized.
Are you in front of the ag board in the applications?
I don't know about that, I'm not the landowner.
Because there is kind of a jurisdictional thing, if the ag board has, and you know
Yeah.
how this works.
Yes, I know exactly how that works. So
If
yes, I
you're in front of
know.
the ag board, then it's,
But the ag board
that
can
takes
be a little
priority
fussy
over
too.
our ordinances.
Right, but I think that the township that's devoted to its rural character can support the land use board. I know that you have ordinances that support the farming community and your ordinances already. I think that's another good step for the farming community too.
Yeah, understood. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Kristen? Can you tell me what we're taking on?
He's looking at them now.
Okay. All right. Any other public comments? Joanne, come on.
You know my two questions, the same two questions every single time. Water company, what's happening?
Well, if you look at the agenda tonight, we've authorized the payment for our new engineering firm. And they're already working on getting together everything we need for that. And it's actually moving along faster than it ever has. We're just authorizing payment to them tonight.
And
to
what is
the
that
engineer.
for? And that's just.
That's for all their engineering services to cover the redoing.
The media, was anything residential water media or anything?
No, but there's more in there than that. It's going to be quite a task. There's electrical work, the communication system is shot. It's really, yeah. So, but I've been in contact with Paul now, almost every week. The communication is head and shoulders above what we had.
So the engineering that you're going to pay is encompassing everything that would have to be done at the work?
Everything, yes.
Okay.
And see the timeline and commitment.
Yeah, that was my next
They,
question.
at this point, it depends on availability of certain equipment, pieces of equipment, things like that. They're still dealing with, equipment shortages and availability issues, but it's, I would hope that we get that well completely done by the end of this year.
That's all right. And the sign. Perfect time for the sign would be to have a notice out there saying that next
Signs out
week,
there.
in case.
Signs out there.
You didn't see it on the way in? She won't even look.
See, you did this awfully quick, but that still is, well, let me tell you something, okay? My son-in-law has an outdoor TV. So if you put this outside, maybe this could replace the sign, people would know this is legal.
It's cheap enough, we go through a TV every 6 months, it would still be cheaper.
No,
Than the sign.
they let us, they're fine, outdoor TVs.
But that,
We may have to do that because anything happening with the sign.
The sign is ours, it's been purchased.
It's all purchased, everything, the artwork's
I mean, that's it. That's what it's going to look
The
like.
problem we have now is,
We are going to
which we discovered about a week ago, 2 weeks ago, Jersey Central came out and did their site survey, as we talked about the last meeting.
I thought I was right, but then I...
We may have to move to the other side of the driveway,
School people.
and we may have to go back and look at that side again, because it's gonna come off of the pole up toward the urgent care, because there's a transformer up there, they don't wanna bring it off the other pole with a transformer, because there's already 1 or 2 lines coming off. Or we have to dig through our entrance road, and the one that
They
occurred.
just did.
That's what I said, the state just did it for
It's
us.
not the end of the world to do that, but my thought, and we're going to have a discussion about it, and maybe tonight we will, we probably should have a discussion tonight. If we go back onto the north side of the driveway, we don't have to cut the trees down there out front.
Why do you have to do that?
Because the sign has to sit back into the tree root. 2 or 3 of the trees have to come out. Well, then the trees are going to be out of balance. It's going to look, and one of the trees is dead. One tree will come down anyway, it's an ash, but the rest of the trees, I thought there were 2 or 3 that were ash, but they're not. So there's only one bad tree in that row of 4 or 5 trees out there. I hate to take all those trees out, I really hate to,
You don't want to have to.
So we may move it up to the north side, depending, we're gonna talk about that in my
Any
portion.
timeline, Walter, on that?
The bids are awarded, everything's done,
Is it just the electric?
and, yeah, it's just the electronics. We'll have the sign, will be ready in the next month or 2, so. But we have to, well, they don't, the contract, but we need to decide if we're gonna put it on the north side, or we're gonna cut the trees down and put it where we were going to originally put it, so. We'll have that
Where
discussion.
you have that stake isn't even near the trees, though. The trees are behind that stake, where the stake
Right
is.
there. That's where it would sit, maybe back a little further.
Yeah, so you have to.
The further we sit back, the better. That's right on the edge of the right-of-way, the front side, the left side of that sign is right on the edge of the right-of-way. It really should sit back another foot or 2. They just kind of dropped it there in the rendering.
What happened with regard to the sign in front of the land use board? We have to get some kind of approval?
No,
Not
you know,
have to
this,
get-
you know, when I saw that from,
Yes.
this is communication to the town. This is not for sale, we're not selling anything, we're not doing any, this is strictly
The
communication.
municipality is
Which
exempt
is
from its
right,
own ordinance.
so.
Very, very well-known fact, everybody should know that.
Great.
I don't know if David-
Well,
I don't agree with David, but he said, let's agree to disagree. Okay.
if he asks, you can always say no, right? So that's fine.
So that's where we are.
Hopefully soon we can get it down to one question. Just talking about the level.
When the sign's out.
We're working on it. We're definitely working
Control
on
what's on there.
This is iPads for me.
it. This,
They have to work it for the other side.
Walter's very happy about this. We just got the screen in today.
Yesterday.
Yeah, so. It does pull out.
It does, but where it sits right there, we can see it, and the public can see it pretty well, right? Most everybody can see it.
Except the people that choose to sit in the back corner.
Yeah, we can turn it. And the Wi-Fi, I don't know what happened, the Wi-Fi is great in here. It's like almost 300 up and 300 down. It's really good. Yeah, Plan Network, we did something.
Everything is going as it is on the agenda.
All righty then.
So, yeah, so apparently, I misspoke. I had coordinated with Linda, I thought they were tabling everything, but that's the chickens. So the one that this gentleman was speaking about, they do want to do on first reading, but that's okay. We're still going to have public comment. First reading is just the first step, so that'll be on for next month, public hearing, public comment. We can discuss changes at that point. What you were talking about would not be major enough that we need to re-advertise anyway, so I'm okay with that. And the other definitional one is just very.
So we're gonna work on the suggested changes to the language for the second reading, because it's not
Whatever
substantial.
you guys want to talk about it, that's fine.
That's fine.
Won't be substantial.
After it's adopted, also we can get the.
Yeah, we
full
will
ordinance.
introduce those two tonight. It's the chicken part that we're
That's
tabling
the house.
later.
And so as we said, your time was not wasted.
Yeah, no.
Glad you came out tonight. Any other public comments before we move on to the meat of the meeting? All right. Department head reports. The month of April, Animal Control Officer, Blairstown Fire Department, Hose Company Number 1, Blairstown Department of Public Works, Police Department, Tax Collector, Township Clerk, Vacant and Abandoned Properties. Our committee members will cover their respective departments in their reports at the end. Do we have a motion to accept the April department head reports?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? All right. Accept those reports. Some meeting minutes to approve. We've got February 22nd, 2023, our executive session. February 22nd, 2023, our public session meeting minutes. March 11th, 2023, our budget meeting minutes. And March 22nd, 2023, our public session meeting minutes.
Mr. Mayor, can we pull the first three and vote on them separately? Because Committeewoman Waldron was not here for those three. You're right.
Okay.
Okay, Mayor, I'll move the first three for adoption.
February 22nd, both executive and public, and March 11th, budget meeting. All right. We have a roll call, please, Kristen.
Mrs. Lance?
Yes.
Mrs. McAdor?
Yes.
Mr. McAdor? Oh my God.
Yes.
Mr. Orkoff?
Yes.
Mrs. Waldron?
Abstain.
Mayor Moran?
Yes. And the March 22nd,
I'll also move March 22nd for adoption.
And I will second that.
roll call, please, Kristen.
Mrs. Lance?
Yes.
Mr. McAdor?
Yes.
Mr. Orkoff?
Yes.
Mrs. Waldron?
Yes.
Mayor Moran?
Yes. All right, moving on, our proclamation to read. June is quickly approaching, and June is LGBT Pride Month in the Township of Blairstown. Whereas our nation was founded on the principle of equal rights for all people, but the fulfillment of this promise has long been coming for many Americans. Some of the most inspiring moments in our history have arisen from the various civil rights movements that have brought one group after another from the margins to the mainstream of American society. And whereas the movement toward equal rights for lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender LGBT people, a historic turning point occurred on June 28, 1969 in New York City with the onset of the Stonewall riots. During these riots, LGBT citizens rose up and fought against the discriminatory criminal laws that have since been declared unconstitutional. And whereas LGBT pride celebrations have taken place around the county every June to commemorate the beginning of the Stonewall riots, and whereas June is celebrated as LGBT Pride Month nationwide, and whereas Blairstown Township has a diverse LGBT community that includes people of all ethnicities, religions, and professions, and whereas everyone should be able to live without fear of prejudice, discrimination, violence, and hatred-based race, religion, gender, identity, or sexual orientation. Now therefore be resolved that the Township Committee of Blairstown Township hereby proclaims June 2023 as Pride Month and urges all residents to respect and honor our diverse community and celebrate and build a culture of inclusiveness and acceptance. Dated this 24th day of May 2023, Mayor Rob Moorhead. And I should say that it goes further. We really did kind of put our reputations out there, and we were the first town in Warren County to raise a pride flag on public property. We did it at Footbridge Park. We'll do that again this year. And it's always a really, really nice day that occurs. And it's so nice to see more and more of the community attending that event. So thank you for that. Some ordinances now. I have a lozenge somewhere.
Here.
Okay.
Here.
I think so, we usually have candy.
Oh, last thing I needed more Walter Sugar, like our Candy Smith here. We have an introduction of 2023-02, an ordinance amending Chapter 19 of the Code of Blairstown entitled Land Development. This is the one.
This is the one I misspoke on, frankly.
Right.
I thought this is the old kennel ordinance. This actually was part of the last master plan re-exam that the land use board did. They sent this and some other ordinances up to us. I codified what they did in this ordinance that's here tonight. We sent it back because I did make a few changes, basically to clean it up. And I guess they've now sent it back to us and said this is fine. So that's what the gentleman was speaking about. But again, as I advised him, this is just a first reading. So we'll still have a public hearing and we can make revisions at that point if we want to. So I think the land use board would like us to go ahead. They've done a lot of work on this one. So they'd like us to go ahead and introduce this one tonight.
Okay. Any discussion?
The only comment I would make would be regarding the section 19408, number 8, small animal hospitals, including outside facilities and kennels, are currently in the highway commercial zone. And so when we had talked about this before, we said that it didn't exist in our E-code, but it does exist in our E-code. So I want you to know that.
When you say 1948,
19-408, it's our E-code number 8.
That's not dealt with. That's not dealt with.
It's called the E-code.
Okay. No.
It's not all the ordinance that you were talking about, it's just what you need.
Right, it's a definition, permission for certain specific areas.
This would basically regulate kennel facilities, and there's definitional provisions, and there's certain zones where they're allowed, and there's conditions on them in certain zones as well, in terms of the size of the acreage and so on and so forth. So this is essentially the same ordinance the land use board asked us to move a while ago, and it's been kind of cleaned up, tightened up, and that's what we are.
Essentially, this makes kennels a conditional use in a highway commercial and R5 zone, right? So every kennel application would come before the land use board as a conditional use.
Right. If it's a commercial kennel, the one thing the ordinance does make very clear is that if you're housing animals for your own personal use, that's not by definition a kennel, that's basically permitted anywhere as it is today.
Right.
And Kevin, how is that restricted with regard to rescues? Because I know we have several of them in town, and we had talked at one point about grandfathering, the possibility of grandfathering them. But in order to do that, they would all have to come forward for conditional use.
Rescue kennels are dealt with in the ordinance by definition, so that they would be regulated.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just looked it up, reading it, it says principal permitted uses on land and in buildings in the HC1 zoning district. And it does say small animal hospitals, including outside facilities and kennels.
Right. That was our primary place to put it. According to master plan, certain areas of the town are designated for certain reasons. The reasons being noise, traffic, et cetera, et cetera. That's why some areas of town, like highway commercial, have designated areas for businesses, stores, and animal hospitals and things of a similar nature. But I just wanted to mention that because it is there.
Okay. Any further discussion? We have a motion to introduce.
Who made that motion? I'll second.
All in favor on this? Or do we?
Yeah, it's an all in favor.
It's an all in favor.
Just
Aye.
Aye. All opposed?
Opposed?
2023-07, an ordinance of the Township of Blairstown to amend Chapter 1, Article 2 of the Code of the Township of Blairstown entitled General Penalty. This is,
This one came up, Mayor. Really, our animal control officer had an issue with a specific ordinance that somewhere along the line it was recodified, penalty completely dropped off. So I believe that was dogs running at large. There was really no penalty. We do have a general penalty ordinance that covered it, and that's good, but it didn't set a minimum penalty. So when I went back, our general penalty ordinance was a little bit outdated, so now this amendment would make a minimum $100 penalty for any ordinance unless it's otherwise specified.
Right.
So I still left you guys with the discretion to go lighter if you'd like, but if not, if you just choose to leave it blank like our running at large ordinance right now, it'll be a $100 minimum penalty with this ordinance. The statute was amended to increase the maximum fine. And by the way, all these are imposed by the judge. We don't have the ability to say you must impose this.
Right.
But the maximum fine has been increased from $1,000 to $2,000, again, in conjunction with the statute change. And finally, it also puts some specific provisions in there, again, in accordance with the statute for solid waste violations, which can be higher still. And we have had some of that in the township. So all in all, I think it's just modernizes our penalty ordinance.
yeah, and I think makes it a little more of a penalty.
Yeah.
At some point, you realize that people will just pay a very low fine, get away with it. Yes. Do we have any discussion on that 2023-07 or a motion to approve, to introduce?
Motion.
Second.
All in favor to introduce 2023-07?
Yes.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay. 2023-08, an ordinance to provide for engineering services, water treatment plant within and for the Township of Blairstown and provide for the funding thereof. This is for our, what we were discussing before, for really the rebuilding of our pump at East Chrisman Road, which is in dire need of updating so that we can be up to DEP standards for that.
Are they extending the DEP deadline for that project?
I'd have to ask Paul about that at Mazer to see, but I would assume they're in contact with them already, because it's.
I know as long as we're working on it. Like,
Yeah, they're going to be tearing everything out of there, so we will be in favor with them very, very soon. Do we have a motion to introduce that?
Make that motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? All right, move on tonight. 2023-09, an ordinance to provide for police equipment within and for the Township of Blairstown and to provide for the funding thereof. What was that?
Specifically, radar and light scan.
Right, exactly. What was the number, like 15,000?
15,000. Our
Okay.
light scan machine broke, and they have to replace that, and the radar equipment was outdated.
Yeah.
Initially, we had budgeted 10,000, but then they had further equipment needs, so I wanted to make sure that those are provided for also.
Yeah, someone was asking me about that the other day. They said, oh, I hear they're getting fancy new radar. I said, no, actually, just the old radar is outdated and broken, so.
Somebody was also questioning something about radar on the poles when the state was out there doing investigative work, and they were talking about putting radar positions on the poles, and it was, they said, they called it a radar detector, but it was a lane changer, because people were asking about it, ASG Johnson, and he related what it really meant, and then that calmed the nerves.
Okay. Do we have a motion to introduce that? 2023-09.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay. Finally, 2023-10, an ordinance amending Chapter 19 of the Code of the Township of Blairstown entitled Land Development, 19-203 definitions.
This is the second ordinance that the Land Use Board asked us to be on the agenda tonight, Mayor. Basically about 25 or 30 either revisions to definitions or some new definitions. And again, this is something that they can do without the master plan re-exam. So again, this is what their board is constituted for, but ultimately they have to recommend we adopt. So
A little background on that. The land use board, the land use board saw fit to look at the definitions and see if some were outdated or didn't really make sense in our current conditions. And Bob Law and Dick Mock formed a subcommittee. They were a subcommittee, and it was an excruciating job to go through all the definitions. And then they brought them all back to the land use board, and we discussed every one of them one by one. And this is what we distilled it down to, is the changes that you see in this ordinance introduction tonight.
Any discussion on 2023-10?
Only that I applaud their effort in having to go through those, because that must have been really mind-numbing.
Yeah,
To go through the scripture.
As a town ages, unless someone goes through our books and figures out all of the fines that are, from 25 years ago, the ordinances, everything changes over time. And unless you have those watchdogs going through all this and modernizing, we really fail to to be able to effectively govern certain things. So I'm glad the land use board has been really proactive in their approach this year, and really digging deep into a lot of different things. So 2023-10, we have a motion to introduce.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
No one else is going to do
A lengthy consent agenda looms in our future. We've got, number one is 2023-52, redemption of the certification of sale, number 2020-005. 2023-53, redemption of certification of sale, number 2022-006. 2023-54, redemption of certification of sale, 2022-007. 2023-55, the redemption of certification of sale number 2022-010. 2023-56, the redemption of certification of sale 2022-011. 2023-57, the redemption of certification of sale number 2022-012. 2023-58, contracting for professional services in accordance with local public contracts law, which is...
It's for the architect, the historic architect, Mark Hickey.
Which we have up here, okay. The expense of that is going to be somewhere around $5,000, I believe, right?
Not to exceed $5,000.
Not to exceed $5,000. Let's see. 2023-59, resolution authorizing the mayor to sign contract for services between the low-income household water assistance program and the Township of Blairstown. This is making certain that we can't shut off the water for...
Well, they have a new program down at DCA, Mayor, that we're mandated to participate in. And if we have a resident, because we have public water in certain parts of the town, so for that water supply system, if there's a resident that makes application to DCA, the good part of this is it's mostly actually one of the few programs the state's actually being responsible for it. They didn't really voice much of this administratively with you guys, but if a resident applies and they qualify, they'll let us know, and they will send us checks that will assist them with subsidizing their water bills. This contract is just basically the mandatory document that makes us basically in relationship with DCA to accept those checks and so on and so forth.
Okay.
There's also notice stuff that I've gone through with our tax collector and with Kristen, so that we make sure,
Yeah, they have to be notified.
make sure people don't know it's out there, the program's out there, we're on top of that.
2023-60, authorize the Historic Committee grant application and match. That's for Footbridge. And 2023-61, fixing of the salaries and wages of officials, appointees, and employees of the Township of Blairstown in the County of Warren, State of New Jersey for 2023. And 2023-62, authorizing the payment of the vouchers from last month.
Mayor, I would do all of the consent agenda if no one Needs to pull any of that.
That'd be great.
I would second that.
All right, we have a motion to approve consent agenda items 1 through 11. Can we have a roll call, please, Kristen?
Mrs. Lance?
Yes.
Mr. McAtora?
Yes.
Mr. Orcott?
Yes.
Mrs. Waldron?
Yes.
Mayor Moorhead?
Yes.
I got it.
All right, some unfinished business. Our sample ordinance required by the New Jersey Department of Health.
I'll have like 2 of them on at the next meeting, I just didn't want to overwhelm us with so many
Okay.
at once.
We're
We're good.
good.
We're good.
We're overwhelmed.
Yeah.
Our Blairstown spring cleanup. Are the vouchers still available?
Vouchers will be available until June 2nd, and we actually have a very good, we've had a lot of people come in and get vouchers, so if you need to get some stuff, get rid of it, come on down and get a voucher, you have to be a Blairstown resident.
Explain a little more about what they're doing with these.
Oh, okay. If you have junk in your house that you'd like to get rid of, you can come down and get a voucher. You'll get 2 vouchers. That voucher will get you either 2 trips to the dump at Warren County landfill in Oxford, in case anybody doesn't know that. Or you can take a truck and a trailer and get rid of the junk that's in your house.
So it's 2 trips in
If you
a full-size
have,
pickup?
if it's a full-size pickup, you can do it twice. If you have a pickup with the truck, you can only go once. You cannot rent a truck from U-Haul and bring it. They won't let you do that, just so you know.
That's bizarre.
Don't take your construction truck, they won't let you go.
And there's also a form that you give out with the
There's a
vouchers.
form that says what you can and cannot take.
Okay.
I'm not going through that list.
So, and you can bring your junk to the dump from May 30th to June 3rd.
And up to June 2nd, you can get a voucher.
Excellent. All right. Moving on to new business. We have a sign going up, perhaps, at our pocket park on East Ave.
I'm excited to have a picture for it.
Yeah, we have a picture for everyone, thanks to
We're
all.
going out at 7 o'clock and take the picture. So there's the sign. I have another picture, better picture though. How about that?
So that's pretty cool. That sign was made and donated by
Trish?
What's her name's dad or something?
well, Gina Trish
Gina's dad,
got in
maybe?
touch with me. She lives across the street from the pocket park. And she said, we've had that there for 10 years now, a decade, and no one has ever had any sort of idea of what it's called or why it's there. And now we have a little designation as the pocket park.
The email says I, so I'm going to say Gina does it.
Yeah.
Okay, that's awesome.
And while we're here, I mean, I just took a couple other pictures. They, Karen, maybe you involved. The Blairstown Enhancement Committee had their cleanup, their spring cleanup last Friday, I believe it was. And part of what got cleaned up was this little park. And they do a nice job, you know, taking care of the plantings and all that. So it's a nice, if anybody's around the village, you know, go down there sometime and walk around and hang out.
It's a nice park.
Nice little park.
You can actually walk to from anywhere.
Plenty of parking right there, right on East Avenue. It's the second right on East Avenue.
There have been a couple of benches in there.
Well, that's what that big rock, that's what this big rock is, you sit on that.
Yeah, it actually is a bench.
That's yeah. Trying to maintain a rural character.
Go back.
Prehistoric character. Okay. Altice contract renewal has been bouncing around.
That's an ordinance, Mayor. And again, it's that they're the successor of Service Electric, it's your existing cable franchise. The only thing I was waiting to make sure is that neither our schools or the police department needed any additional connections, but most of those are going to Planet Network anyway.
I do believe the schools are on another 5
The
minutes.
schools, I think, just told me this evening are on another. So we'll have this ordinance for first reading next month.
Okay.
Kevin, isn't that using the Maltese Optimum too?
Yeah, they're the successor of all that. They're the parent company.
Okay. They're doing some kind of massive update to their cable networks. So the TVs have been on and off for the last 2 or 3 days, so just in case.
This is the old-fashioned franchise, by the way. There is a cable franchise fee that we do get as a municipality, and of course, that's set by statute, but it is in the ordinance.
How much is that roughly?
I think it's 2% of gross revenue or something.
How much? 2%?
2% of the gross revenue, so just for the township. I think, it generates probably $10,000 a year, maybe, I'm not sure, we'll have to check with Christie. But
It's not the only reason to do that.
Well, yeah, and other than the fact that we also have to do it. It's really, but we'll have that for next month.
All right, thank you, Kevin. Any correspondence, Kristen?
No, sir.
Okay. From the township attorney, as if you haven't had enough to say tonight.
Yeah, I'll be real. I gave you guys a report, a lot of it was no changes. I did give you guys, or shared with you, some environmental information on the Cossimere Park property, which is right next to the park, of course. And over the years, the township has had periodic interest in it. So I shared that with you guys. I used Sandra Millard, from GeoWorks, who we all are using down at the firehouse, and she's great. So it didn't cost you anything, but she happened to have somebody that was in the area, and I made arrangements with the owner. She was fine to go in and take a look. So you have that estimate. I don't know whether this is something that maybe we could get Joel engaged in again. I know Joel was involved at one point on the old Gossamer place over there, the Green Acres or something. If we could find a funding source, it might be nice at some point, but I did get updated environmental stuff from Sandra. Joel, I don't know if you got a copy of that I can share.
No, I never did, thanks.
I just got it recently. I mean, she basically, you're right, there really aren't any records on file. She also observed a lot of semi-rusted out tanks sitting above ground, which is a big concern since the river's right there.
Maybe we can continue this in executive session.
But, yeah, we don't have to do anything further with it tonight, honestly. I just wanted to let you know that it was out there. I think everything else we pretty much covered. I'm still working with Charlie and the chief on if we get to the point of getting a school resource officer contract, and that's still a work in progress. I think everything else in my report we covered already, unless you guys have any other questions.
I believe, by the way, on that, I did talk to the chief a little bit yesterday. That's, from a budget standpoint, it's going to be very restricted. It's not a lot of hours at all. I don't know. Charlie and Rob, the mayor, will come back to talk about that. It's a little tricky now that it's a lot less than a full-time position. Maybe one person only 20 hours or something.
We do have a meeting coming up on that, so. Okay, thank you, Kevin. From the township clerk.
I actually don't have anything.
I like that.
Yeah, me too.
I do indeed. Committee member Lance.
Okay, thank you. So we heard a presentation earlier from Beth Styler-Barry regarding the removal of the Collinsville Dam. Very, very fond of the Collinsville. The efforts that have been done to clean it up, to remove the further dam further downstream, and now the one in Blairstown. Very excited about that. Also, one of the things that we passed very quietly tonight, I'm very excited about that too. The Blairstown Historic Preservation Committee will be submitting a grant proposal to refurbish the footbridge in Footbridge Park. It's not in terrible condition. We do have a structural report from our engineers. The segments that are over water were listed as not in as good condition as the rest of it. We are very, very excited about pursuing funding to be able to repair this. So thank you very much for all the hard work that's being done with that. We have different letters of support from all sorts of different organizations throughout the town, from Blair Academy, from restaurants, from different nonprofits and organizations. And it's going to be wonderful, but this is just the first steps. It's a long road to travel, and it's going to be a lot of money and funding, and you'll hear more about it when we have a press release. Let's see. The Blairstown Board, the planning is in full swing. We would like to invite the members of the public to hold the date and plan on spending it in the park. All previous exhibitors and displays have already been emailed their applications, and the application is also on the township website for anybody who would like to exhibit there. We have some of the food is set up. We have all the preparations with the Warren County Board of Health, the New Jersey Division of Fire Safety, and some of the food has been confirmed, we have commitments, but we haven't received, I don't think, any funding yet. But that's okay, I don't mind, I will drive and collect checks, I really will. So there's that. Finance, we had a meeting this past Wednesday, budget's already adopted, not as much work to be doing this time of year, yay. We did go over the status of the remaining American Rescue Funds. Always work to be done to review the bills and approve of payment, but things are going smoothly there. I see for the Blairstown Blairstown Elementary School, their Board of Ed at their April meeting did pass a $9.8 million budget. It's a lot of money. They provide a good school. It's where the majority of your taxes end up going, is in schools. But again, they do provide a very good education. I see that they've authorized the business administrator to write an application for a safety grant, which is nice to see too. They do have a meeting tomorrow evening at 7 p.m. And on their agenda, they are preparing for the extended school year, which is the summer. So that's wonderful. North Warren Regional, let's see what's going on. Voices of the Veterans is still going on, which is a display that they have in their main hallway during the whole month of May, and it's highlighting the contributions of local veterans, past and present, with photos and stories. It's very interesting to look at. The North Warren Art Show is happening tomorrow night from 6 to 8 p.m. So that's interesting. One of the things that I highlighted last month was the QPR session, which is question, persuade, and refer. Blairstown is a stigma street. It has in the past been a stigma in town. The training was on May the 11th, and it was presented by the Warren County Board of Health. In the audience were teachers, coaches, youth leaders, government leaders, and just other concerned citizens. You did have to register, but anybody could come in. It was an interactive slideshow of different situations and possible choices of actions to discuss responses that one might make when someone expresses signs of depression, despair, self-harm, feelings of worthlessness. And it was really very instructional, but I think probably one of the things that I got most out of it was if somebody trusts you enough to express even the slightest hint that something is wrong, stay with them and privately pull them aside and ask them straight out and get them the help that they need. When I went to go look up the 1-800 number for National Suicide Prevention, I found out, and I did not know this, the National Suicide and Crisis Lifeline is 988. So from any phone anywhere in the United States, you can just dial 988, and they will talk with anyone who's a concerned citizen on behalf of someone else. If you're the person who is in despair, they will talk to you. It's confidential. It's completely, it's not like calling 911. They're going to ask you a little bit about your location. They're going to ask the type of experience that you're having, and you can actually get referred to services right then and there on that call, which is wonderful. I think that this also ends up being the same number, same services for veterans as well, which is a very difficult time in this country for veterans who are, having thoughts of despair and things like this. So at any rate, it was a really, really good opportunity to learn more about what to do if somebody comes to you. So that's enough about that. I did get a report from the Blairstown Ambulance Corps that we're fortunate to have volunteer ambulance corps in Blairstown, so thank you very much for that, because I don't know that we would be able to provide that service as easily as they just do a great job. We did have 71 calls with 507 man-hours, responding to that for 55 patients. 46 calls were in Blairstown, so the bulk of the calls are usually in Blairstown, 4 in Frelinghuysen, 5 in Hope, 5 in Hardwick, 13 in Hope, 2 in Milton, and 1 in Walpack. Yes, we cover all the way back to Walpack, because that's just, we have access to it, and I think it's Blue Ridge. I don't know what the other ambulance squad is at the other end, but that's where you have access to it. Sorry, I have a lot of things, but that's, and again, the hard work that has been going to prepare the grant application for the Warren County Municipal Charitable Conservancy Trust. Thanks so much to everybody who has worked to put that together. That was everything, yeah.
Okay, thank you. Committee member McIntyre.
Okay, from the police chief, we would like to advise everybody that there's been an increase in mail theft. I know a lot of people do everything via email anymore, but there's been several cases in town where they've actually been stealing the mail. Obviously, this is leading to identity theft and a few forgery crimes. So the chief asked that you're a little bit more vigilant, try to get your mail as soon as possible and let it sit out there. And lastly, if you can possibly have a camera, that would also help. On June 9th at 2 o'clock, the elementary school is going to do a public dedication of a bench that the children designed for our police dog, Canine Casper. So that's on June 9th at 2 o'clock, and the public is invited to attend. Obviously, the police officers will be there. And again, the students designed it, and so that's going to be a special little event for the children for summer recess. The police department has to buy a new alco test, $21,000. No choice, the state kind of forces it upon us. It's not coming until 2024, however, we have to pay for it in 2023. So if you regularly come to the meeting, you're going to see us having another expense of $21,000. On 5/21, Corporal Herzer and Detective Joe administered Narcan to a 37-year-old female in Blairstown, along with CPR, and they were fortunate enough to save that young lady's life. So, you know, much appreciation, obviously, on our officers and the dedication, plus their training to save this person. The Blairstown Ambulance Corps is hosting a mass casualty drill event, and that's going to be at Jones Farm right up on 94th. It's going to be in June. We'll notify you of the date. It will be on the website. So this way it's not going to alarm the public when you go by and see all these different agencies there and think, you know, whatever happened. But it's going to be a mass casualty event.
June 10th.
Is it June 10th?
June 10th.
Okay. Also, as mentioned, the elementary school is going to be hiring a resource officer. The mayor, myself, and the chief are going to be meeting with them on June 1st. So obviously it's not going to be for this school year, but I would suspect when the children go back to school in September, they will have a resource officer in the school. And lastly, Route 94, everybody that travels it sees that it's under construction from the state. And we would kind of advise, if possible, maybe take some back roads. What we're seeing is a lot of people are coming up to the traffic, they're getting stopped, they're getting impatient, everybody's doing U-turns. Obviously, it's very hazardous. So they kind of ask that, you know, if you can take an alternate route, it might be more beneficial for you at this time. As far as animal control, I see that we have our animal control here officer this evening, and for the month of April, we get 35 calls. In our municipality, 11 of them being dogs at large. For those of you that are on Facebook, it seems like every day you see another dog out there that people are trying to identify. And as Mr. Henry will tell you, you know, not only should you have your dog's license, but have the license on the dog. It would make his life and everybody else's life a lot easier, not to mention if you lose your pet, you'll be able to retrieve it real quickly. He did cover Township while they were away for a while. Other than that, I'm sure he's going to be very happy to hear the increase in fines, because he does spend a lot of time in court, unfortunately. He is very diligent in his job, and you know, after a few summons warnings, you will receive the summons. But Scott, do you have anything to add real quickly while you're here?
No,
We're fortunate enough to have you here tonight.
I'm pleased that things are progressing.
All we have to do is make sure that the courts.
Yeah, Kevin and I
I told Scott that when we adopt the ordinance, I'm going to send it to the judge and to the
Right.
prosecutor, just so they're aware.
Right.
And also kind of reiterate, one of the reasons we did it was for Scott.
Good, thank you.
But that's all. Again, Scott, thank you very much for your service. You're doing a great job.
Yeah,
Thank
thank
you,
you
my
very
pleasure.
much, Scott.
That's all I have there.
Thank you, Charlie. Deputy Mayor Orcutt, before your iPad dies.
Okay, Mayor, yeah, thank you, got the 6%. So, as you said before, we finally got the TV out, the flat screen, so, you know, they say a picture's worth 1,000 words, so I'll try to do a bunch of pictures and not so many words. But this is a photo of
that was taken today of Farm Meadow Park, our 63-acre tract down, this is from Hope Bank, looking toward that red in the center is the old Dairy Queen. That hay, that field is going to be all planted in hay. When the hay gets matured this late summer or fall, then we'll do a walking path meandering through the 63 acres and around the Kettle Pond, and we'll have the grass parking lot over on the railroad side. What else do we have here? Oh yeah, so yesterday, I came in yesterday to do some business, and I noticed a lot of cars parked out front, and we had the North Warren Garden Club was out there, and this is that little island right when you pull in, and they were out there doing their thing, pulling the weeds and fixing up the flowers and all that. I said, hey, get ready for a picture, and of course, they all posed for a picture.
I got a nice thank you card from them for the money that we gave them.
Oh, good. They thanked me yesterday in person too. I said, oh yeah, yeah. So they're doing a really nice job, and we appreciate that. The trees at the green field. So a while back we got the Salem oaks from. These are very historic trees. These are saplings grown from seeds from that Salem oak. Look it up later, guys. But
It's 100 years old.
it's so we planted. We got two. I had them both planted on the green park, the green fields, I should say, and they're growing nicely. They're really working out well. This is the one out closer to the high school, and this is the one up toward the library, between the library and actually this was this afternoon, and actually the farmers taking hay off of that field today. That's the story with that one. We talked about the digital sign. We did talk a little bit about Footbridge Park. I saw an interesting thing this morning. This is the steel plaque that's right at the Route 94, and it's in terrible condition, of course. I don't know if it makes any sense to maybe talk to them, have the historic committee approve us getting that plaque removed and getting it sandblasted and fixed up and put back.
It's part of the anticipated program for the first funding is to
redo the
get
plaque.
to get it redone.
Okay. I also went around. Oh, this is a really good one to talk about. Here's Gibbons Ballet this afternoon. Gibbons Ballet Hall.
It looks gorgeous.
Looking completely
Siding.
different.
They got the siding on one side anyway, and Gibbons Ballet American Legion Hall. The town took over from the Legion 10 or 15 years ago, with the caveat that we, maintain it, and the American Legion gets to keep having their meetings there forever in perpetuity. And as you guys remember, there was the wheelchair ramp across the front of the building. Well, Rotary came into us. For those of you who don't know, Rotary came in 3 or 4 months ago, 5 months ago, and said, we want to do a project in town. What are you thinking? Is there something at Sycamore Park? We said, no, let's do something with the Legion. So they're going to put well over $100 grand in this thing, I think. Just the wheelchair lift, if you can see that there's a whole new stairs, concrete stairs that Casey Masonry did. To the right, that little box up there, that's an elevator thing, so now the wheelchair can just go, wheelchairs or handicapped folks will come up to that, they close the little door and it raises them up and down. We did realize when they had the building, when they started stripping the siding off, that the building wasn't insulated, and we took that opportunity to insulate the blow-in insulation. The town actually took care of that end of it, and we insulated our building too, just while we were there. We really appreciate the Rotary's efforts on this thing. Bob Law and John Maxton have been involved in this on a daily basis for months and months with Paul Klein, who's doing the construction management of the whole project.
Between the roof and the siding, the building is unrecognizable from its former state. It looks great.
The DPW was out. They've been out painting. We maintain, of course, all the properties. They painted the dugouts down at Sycamore Park in their spare time. There's the basketball court this afternoon. 10 or 15 kids out there playing basketball. Really glad we were able to get that thing done. And then I see Joanne left. This was one of her little pet projects. Was this Gaga? It looks like a little kid. It's like a little kid corral, actually. Should have made it a little higher so the kids can't get out, but Grandpa, I can say that.
You put a cage over it.
But they have a ball. There's a game to it.
It's a ball game.
Even better. So anyway, the kids were in there. I was pretty pleased. I knew that the DPW had put it together and installed it up there. And when I wanted to take a picture today, there were a bunch of kids playing it. So it's all good. That's what we want to see.
This week Gaga, next week pickleball, you know.
Not there.
Maybe we can do pickleball out here on the right side of the court. I actually talked to Bob Halberstadt a little bit about that. He has some experience. His wife runs the pickleball at Freedom.
That's what he said.
And maybe we could, maybe if there's enough interest in it. I'm actually not hearing a lot of interest in doing a pickleball court, which
What's
is
that, pickleball tournament with Blairstown versus Frelinghuysen? Is that what I'm hearing?
No, not Frelinghuysen. They wouldn't want to be charged. And while we're on that note about Frelinghuysen, and I started to see Bob left too, but Bob Halberstadt said, well, is this end of Wausegan Road in Blairstown? I go, no, Wausegan Road is Frelinghuysen. And he goes, well, they stopped paving it. Well, where they stopped paving, the house side, this I guess we'll call it the south side, the last two houses are in Blairstown, but the frontage is all Frelinghuysen. But Frelinghuysen, in their infinite wisdom, decided, well, we're just not going to pave that section of the road. Ridiculous. I went there today, I looked at it, it was ridiculous. I hope, we don't do stuff like that here, but.
No, there's been very good cooperation.
Yeah,
on
well,
Union Brick Road for, between home and.
Yep. Oh, we were, when we paved that road, it was completely coordinated. The project was done at the same time. It really worked out well.
And if I recall, Baines Lane, right, you have to go through.
In and out of Hardwick a couple times.
And then
Yep.
go into Blairstown, that was not.
Yep. So that's pretty much all I have tonight, Mayor.
Okay, thank you, Deputy. Committee Member Waldron.
Okay, bringing up the Frelinghuysen Township. Did we receive any formal notification from Frelinghuysen with regard to the change in zone on Route 94 up by Yellowbird Church? They just auctioned off a 30-acre piece of property.
Did it sell this time?
No. Well, it did sell. They held the auction for an extra half hour till one of their vendor people came, and he could not apparently come up with the complete funding. But the point was that they changed the zone to ROM, from farmland to ROM, but did not notify the immediate neighbors. That's one. Two, they also told the immediate neighbor when they went to the auction that the property was going to be allowed to farm cannabis on the property, but that they would not be allowed to cure it on that property. But I can't get a copy of any zone change that was made by Frelinghuysen on it. So can we get something so that we know what they're...
You can make an over request.
Yeah.
It's there.
Why do we care?
Why do we care?
Well, we care if it's a warehouse, or
It's not a warehouse. It is, the ROM zone, I did talk to somebody from Frelinghuysen about it. The ROM zone is research, office, and I forget, M is not, I don't know if it's manufacturing. Sorry?
Manufacturing.
Yeah, it's light manufacturing.
Right. Light and they are trying to attract a cannabis use there, which would pay the highest money for that particular property. That's their reasoning for going after that.
How does that stand
2%
being,
local tax.
how does that stand, Kevin, being close to like schools and stuff like that? Permitted?
I'm not aware of anything particular.
No restrictions?
In terms of that, no. I mean, the attraction obviously is a 2% gross revenue tax. I mean,
Right.
I think the retail center in Phillipsburg is generating probably almost $1 million in revenue. So it's kind of a hot item right now.
Where do we stand with
Okay, the
regard to
safest
that?
building.
We've opted out of everything right now.
We have, but we're coming up to...
Well, that's a 5-year opt-out. You can opt into any particular class if you'd like at some point. You guys haven't decided to do anything with that.
Yeah, I would like to discuss that at some point. Okay. There's programs. Seinfeld bill came into New Jersey. The Seinfeld bill is supposedly going to be a telemarketing bill. You're going to be thrilled about this. A Republican Senator, John Brownneck, proposed the bill, and it promotes transparency. And basically what it's going to do is, the law was signed by Governor Murphy on Monday. It requires telemarketers to tell you their name, place of business, the name, callback number from whom they represent, and the reason for calling within 30 seconds. It also mandates that telemarketers display their mailing address on their website. So it's designed to alleviate some of the annoying phone calls that you get. there's a change of the senior freeze. It's called the senior freeze. It's formally called the Anchor Tax Relief Program. And many seniors have been struggling for the last few years because of the amount of tax increases that we've found in the state, and many of them were forced to leave the state because of that. And speaking at a town hall, Governor Murphy met with AARP advocacy groups and decided to extend the senior freeze. And what he's doing is the money will go directly to the municipalities and first pay their full property tax bill, especially at a time with financial strain. So basically, it's also raising the deduction. So normally, the deduction was $100,000, now it's going to be $150,000. So that's a significant increase to residents, especially senior citizens, who need the extra help. So there's more that's going to come out on that in the near future. There was two new studies that came out with regard to marijuana, and basically the studies were proposed by the American Medical Association, but put on Fox News. I saw it on Fox News. And it was with regard to cannabis abuse and basically what happens to people who do it, and how many children have become suicide victims as a result of repeat and heavy cannabis use. And they said that it brings in things like schizophrenia to young people, so they want you to know that in advance. Karen and I met with and talked to the Blairstown Historic. We met with Christine Roloff. We had a Zoom call, and we talked about the bridge, the historic bridge. And I gave every single person here, along with our attorney, the information. And basically what we agreed to is that this funding for this bridge, it's necessary. The bridge is in rough shape. There are sections of the bridge that they call them repair categories that need significant repair, and they need it relatively soon. So what we have to do is get a formal diagram with description and like an architectural rendering of that bridge. That should be the first area. So that's one of the first findings that we're going to do in our proposal for the first section of this. And once that's done, then we're going to take it in sections. We've also reached out to the Congress office to see if we can get some additional federal funding, because the overall amount of the bridge is more than we originally anticipated. So that's all I've got.
Okay. Thank you. Let's see, it's down to me. Most of the time, all of my stuff, my thunder has been stolen in the meeting.
We're stealing your thunder.
So.
We're stealing your thunder. We're going to disturb you for just a moment.
Okay.
We wanted to wish you a happy birthday.
Oh, thank you. Thank
They
you.
happen to be there, Moorhead's birthday.
Moment of silence for my birthday.
It looks like,
She's just gone to bring in, we were trying to figure out what was the best time to announce it. They said, you know what, why don't we let everybody enjoy the treats while you're speaking? So.
If you'd like some cookies.
there's more treats than
There's more
that.
coming.
Oh, for God's sake. Oh, come on, look at this.
I want to sing to you.
Let me outline my birthday starting this morning.
Sorry, where's the fire extinguisher?
Yeah. I'm a little nervous. Can you get up here and pull these kids?
Go around, we're gonna take some pictures. Oh, this will be great. This is great.
Holy crap. Everybody start singing.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear brother. Happy birthday to you.
Ready?
That laugh.
I don't want those germs, man.
No, it's.
Just wave something at it.
This is the best. Oh.
All right.
I was at the doctor today, and there's nothing wrong with me except I need lipitor.
Good job.
Thank you. Thank you. I know everyone stuck around just for that.
Corporate.
Yeah.
They can't just call it corporate.
Yeah, so, I got my yearly physical today. I actually put it right on my birthday just to make myself feel really good. I fell down the stairs on the way out the door this morning, on the way to my physical. So this has been the best part of my birthday, so I appreciate it. Thank you very much. Yeah, they put me on a statin, so now I'm officially old. And I can eat that. I can just eat that icing. Just eat the icing. I can do that. I'm on drugs. Better living through chemistry. Okay.
Hey, back to your agenda there.
I'm on drugs. Anyway, they're good drugs. They're prescribed. Just wanted to go over Blairstown Hose Company #1. They had a pretty light month. They had a good drill at Station 1, doing things that I, at my age, am capable of doing. Although I'm sure Bob Halberstadt joined in and showed them all that what his age group can do. They also wanted to congratulate one of their own firefighters, Dominic Russo, on the completion of the 4-month New Jersey State Correctional Police Officer training. And he was also awarded the Commissioner's Fitness Award, so that's pretty cool. These folks really do take their... I drove by when the drill was going on, and you realize how much they take what they do on a volunteer basis, what they do for this town. They take it so seriously, and the participation, if anyone has ever been in a group of any sort, you realize that like 3% of the group actually does something. Not so with Blairstown Fire Company. Everyone participates, and they do such an amazing job to see everyone out there with that common goal. They had 15 calls for service this month. 12 were in Blairstown, 2 in Hardwick, 1 in the Delaware Water Gap Recreation Area. They did a rescue there, and they had a brush fire, which I am sure many people smelled at one point last month. You can smell a brush fire many miles away. And they had one call in Knowlton. And that is all I have for this evening. It has been kind of a lengthy meeting, and there are cupcakes.
You gotta get adjourned.
Executive session?
Yeah.
Do we need an executive session?
I don't think we do,
I don't
because
think
what
we
we
do.
discussed, it was over there. Okay,
No.
hold on. Go ahead.
So do we have a motion to adjourn?
Second.
All in favor? All opposed? Meeting's adjourned. Thank you so much for coming out and hanging out with us tonight. Please have some cupcakes.